Now I know they're really good, but are the Cincinnati Bengals screwed? The Cincinnati Bengals played in the Super Bowl just 2 seasons ago and are set up really good for the future, but they definitely need their core to stick around. Joe Burrow needs to get paid, Jamar Chase needs to get paid, but is that going to leave T. Higgins out of the equation? Surely Cincy isn't going to trade him because they're legit contenders, but this season just got a little harder because Joe Burrow may not even be ready for week 1. The Bengals are really good, and I don't think anyone will be surprised if they're holding up the Lombardi Trophy in February, but it's definitely not going to be easy. But first, thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video. Do you want to get in on the fantasy action this season but are sick of the roster management? This year, best ball on DraftKings is bigger than ever. Just draft your team once in a snake draft at the beginning of the season, and each week you'll automatically rack up points from your top scorers on your team. No roster management to worry about. To start playing best ball, download the DraftKings app and sign up using our code JDP and enter the DraftKings Best Ball $10 million contest and draft your team for the season. Each week you'll automatically rack up points from your top scorers. No ads, drops, trades, or I should have played him instead. You'll be able to enjoy the fantasy football action without the need to manage your team. The team with the most points by the end of the season will take home the $1 million top prize. So what are you waiting for? Head to the DraftKings app now and sign up using our code JDP and start playing best ball today. Only at DraftKings with code JDP. Thank you again to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video. Let's get right back to it. During training camp, Joe Burrow went down with a calf injury. Now, when it first happened, nobody had any idea what the injury was, and it really could have been much worse than it actually was. Luckily, it was just his calf, but that's still gonna keep him out for a bit. Burrow really just can't have a normal offseason, it seems. He was a rookie during COVID, so there were no preseason games that year. Then in 2021, he was still recovering from an ACL and MCL surgery, and then last preseason, Burrow had an appendectomy. He just has a weird stretch of training camps, but clearly they haven't really hindered him too much because he's literally like the second best quarterback in football. Obviously the Bengals need to be careful with him, but is he even going to be ready to play in week 1 against the Browns? Well, Jamar Chase seems to think that Burrow needs to take as much time as possible to actually make sure he's 100%. Jamar apparently told Burrow that he didn't want him back because he doesn't want him to rush it and end up with some issues later on in the season because of it. He said that as long as he's there after week 5, that's good. That'd be a pretty long time to be out for a calf strain, but we also don't really know the degree of it. Dak Prescott is the most recent calf injury that I can probably remember, but he kind of downplayed it, and then the Cowboys luckily had that bye week, but then he also didn't play the week after either. So it took him 21 days in total to actually return to the field. It didn't look like he had any more issues with it, so it seems like the Cowboys made the right call there. Remember, Jamar Chase also had a hip injury last season and ended up missing some time and was held out a whole extra week just to make sure he was 100%. So he definitely knows what he's talking about. Still, Burrow potentially missing Cincinnati's first 5 games of the year would definitely suck and potentially just wipe them from contention for the playoff bye. The Bengals do start the season with back-to-back AFC North matchups versus the Browns and the Ravens. The other 3 teams are against the Rams, Titans, and Cardinals. Tennessee is definitely the best of that bunch. No matter what the media is trying to tell you about them, they're good. I mean, they would have won the AFC South if it weren't for injuries last year. The Rams are also going to probably be better because they were so banged up last year. And Arizona, well, Arizona on paper sucks, so I wouldn't be too shocked if they win that one. It'd be manageable for the Bengals to go without Burrow, but obviously the quarterback play would suffer a ton. The projected starter if Burrow isn't back for week 1 is Trevor Siemian. Yeah, he'd be a massive downgrade from Joe Burrow to say the least. He was actually solid for like 2 years in New Orleans and had 11 touchdowns to 3 interceptions in 6 games, but he's only started 30 games in his pro career, and 24 of those came in Denver right after Peyton Manning retired. Then the Bengals had Jake Browning and Reed Sinnett behind him, who have both just kind of floated around the league as a couple of undrafted guys. The Bengals have some dudes on that offense, so Trevor Siemian, or really whoever's playing behind center, is going to have good pieces around them, but they sure ain't Joe Burrow. What makes the Joe Burrow injury, even if it's not bad, more interesting is his contract situation. If it were a really bad injury, there was a chance that it could pause extension talks or something, but I don't think it really changes changes anything. If I were Burrow, I'd pretty much rather get it done now before I step back on the field or play. But the Bengals should do right by him, and it will probably end up just over the new Justin Herbert deal if I have to take a guess. He just got a 5-year, $262.5 million extension from the Chargers. It was $500,000 more than Lamar Jackson got from the Ravens, so I wouldn't be surprised if Burrow ends up with like $265 million, which would be $53 million per season. Especially with Joe Burrow about to get a big extension, I have to wonder if this is going to be the last year of the Bengals' big three: Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. Trying to keep all three of them is going to be an insane financial ask and surely hurt the rest of the roster. Burrow is the obvious priority, as the quarterback position always is, but someone is probably going to get left out, and it's probably going to be T. Higgins. Burrow is still under contract through 2024 because of his 5th-year option, but T. Higgins' deal is up after this season. It's entirely possible that he just becomes a free agent in the offseason, or at least gets the franchise tag. Of course, if Cincinnati shockingly is bad this season, he could even get traded at the deadline. Jamar Chase is just the clear better wideout and was also the higher draft pick, so it's an obvious decision to choose his future extension instead. Now, I wouldn't really be surprised to see T. Higgins get the tag for the Bengals like next offseason, but if they do manage to keep them all together, the rest of the roster is going to get considerably weaker because of it. With this being the potential last year with the gang all together, the Bengals really do need to go all in and see if they can win a Super Bowl, because they've already been right there. Cincinnati made it all the way to the big game in the 2021 season, but did just lose to the Rams 23-20. They can't really escape those 23-20 losses either, because that's the same score that they lost to the Chiefs by in the AFC Championship last season. They've been right there on the cusp, they can almost taste it, but there's a reason teams are always more successful with their quarterbacks on rookie deals. Once they pay Burrow, the dominoes are going to start to fall, and the Bengals will have to figure out who they're going to pay and where they're going to cut corners. Cincinnati's window to win should be really long, but I do think this season is legitimately the best shot that they have. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the league and one of the best wide receivers in the league who are both on rookie deals. Plus, they do have another beast wideout. Joe Mixon even just took a pay cut to stay with the Bengals, and they have only continued to build and get better, like with signing Orlando Brown to be the safety net at left tackle. The defense is really good, but they've already had to make some big financial sacrifices there. Last season, the Bengals had one of the best safety duos in the league with Jesse Bates and Von Bell. Well, they had to figure out the money, and ultimately both are now with new teams. Really, that's just scratching the surface. Whether it's on defense with Jesse Bates or on the offense with T. Higgins, sacrifices are gonna have to be made. The Bengals are really good and should be really good for years to come, but there's no doubt that this year is the best chance that they're gonna have to win it all, because eventually they're gonna start having to hand out bags to their star players.